All right, welcome to the fourth and final week of USD Career Conversations. My name is Ashlyn Schoenfelder, and I'm a Career Advisor and Employer Relations Coordinator in the Academic and Career Planning Center. This video will be recorded and available on our YouTube channel at a later time. This week, we are joined by 7 different employers, so thank you guys for joining us. First, we have First Bank and Trust, Dakota Banks, Northwestern Mutual, Sioux City Community School District, Sterling, Union Pacific Railroad, and Werner Enterprises. We will first introduce ourselves more in depth, then dive deep into the questions, and then I will save time at the end if any students join live for them to ask questions. So for our employers, could you say your name, your job title, what you do, and a little bit about your company? So first off, we will start with Alex from First Bank and Trust.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Nelson. I'm with First Bank and Trust. I'm based out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I am the Talent Management Officer here at First Bank and Trust. That entails a little bit of a variety of things. Primarily, one of my functions is recruitment. I focus mostly on technology type roles within the bank. And then also oversee the internal career development programs that we have here at the bank. So a little bit of a variety, which I really enjoy, just being able to do multiple different things and kind of get my hands into some different areas. So super exciting. First Bank and Trust is primarily a community bank operating out of South Dakota and Minnesota. We serve, I believe it's 22 communities throughout those states. We also have First Line Funding Factoring Group, which is a trucking invoicing service that we offer to the trucking industry. But yeah, we have a great culture. We really pride ourselves on our culture and treating people well. We believe that if our communities thrive, our bank will thrive also. So that's kind of our ideology.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. Next, we have Haley from Dakota Banks.
Hi, I'm Haley Grandpré. Like Ashlyn said, I'm from Dakota Bank. I am located in our Aberdeen, South Dakota office. I am the talent management generalist. I've been with the company for a little bit over 3 years. I have done anything in between of payroll, benefits, a lot of administrative duties. I'm our main recruiter here in our talent management department. I am the campus coordinator for all of our career fairs on campus, as well as work with our interns during our summer internship program. So kind of get a very vast variety of job responsibilities. I am technically employed by our Dakota Bank Incorporated headquarters. Most of the time, external individuals only see Dakota Bank, which is totally what we want you all to see as well too. A little bit about Dakota Bank. We are a state chartered bank located throughout the Midwest. We have 33 locations located in North Dakota, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Our headquartered office space is in Aberdeen. We're about 600 individuals company-wide. We're about $3.5 billion asset of a bank. With being in the Midwest, we pride ourselves obviously around agriculture. We are the 12th largest egg bank in the nation, which just technically means we do a lot of egg loans. We also provide banking, insurance, mortgage, and trust services to our customers in all of those locations. With being a community-sized bank, we really just pride ourselves in being ingrained and involved in all of the small rural communities that we're in. And hopefully we'll talk a little bit about our internship program and job opportunities that we kind of have today as well too. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Haley. Next, we have Carly from Northwestern Mutual.
Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Like Ashlyn said, I'm Carly. I work here in our Sioux Falls office for Northwestern Mutual. Northwestern Mutual is a nationwide company. We have offices all across the U.S., but our territory really lies here in Sioux Falls and northwestern parts of Iowa. So a little bit about what I do is I'm a recruiter and communications coordinator. So I primarily work on the full-time space within recruiting. and really get to introduce people to what I think is a career of a lifetime for the right person. It's extremely hard, but it's really worth it in the end. And I also help alongside of our internship space. So we go to career fairs and things like that and really introduce students to our college financial rep internship. So that's a little bit about my role. I've been with NM, like I said, a year. And if you're not familiar with Northwestern Mutual, we really house financial advisors. And what they do is really exist to free Americans from financial insecurity. So helping our clients protect, optimize, and distribute their wealth in a tax efficient way. So that's a little bit about Northwestern Mutual, and yeah, really happy to be here. Thanks, Ashlyn.
Thanks, Carly. Next, we have Abby from Sioux City Community School District.
Hello, good morning, everybody. My name is Abby Cortez. I'm a recruiter and retention specialist for the Sioux City Community School District. A little bit about what I do. So I help recruit the nation's top talent to fill positions within the Sioux City Community School District. Additionally, I assist in identifying, trends and researching best practices for staff retention, assist in helping to develop an annual plan to implement staff retention strategies as well. A little bit about our school district. So Sioux City Community Schools has been around for more than 150 years. We have been educating students in the northwest part of Iowa, Sioux City. We are the third largest provider in public education here in the state of Iowa. We have about approximately 15,000 students that we serve within the school district and nearly 2,500 teachers and staff. 22 schools. So our district represents a significant diversity in race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, and many other measures. So a little bit about me, and I can't wait to talk to you a little bit more later on throughout this session.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Abby. Next, we have Victor from Sterling.
Hey everyone, good morning.
Hi, Victor.
So yeah, my name is Victor Palacios. I'm the talent acquisition specialist here at Sterling. I primarily lead all the recruiting efforts. We're actually located out of North Sioux City, South Dakota. That's where our headquartered location is, but we do have locations on both the East Coast and the West Coast. And just a quick summary. So Sterling is actually a VAR, or a value added reseller. And so we have a little over 1,500 partnerships with these OEMs or manufacturers of computers and computer components. And that's essentially our bread and butter. We're primarily dealing with the federal government on a lot of large contracts. And so that's kind of how we built those relationships and continue to build them. But yeah, that's a little bit about me and a little bit about Sterling.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next, we have Nate from Union Pacific Railroad.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Nate Shumagum. I went to school, University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and started at UP about 10 years ago. And I've kind of done several roles in finance and marketing and sales and back to finance. And I'm currently on the finance org and strategy team. And really that just means a variety of projects for our finance leadership team, recruiting and onboarding, employee engagement, you name it, really just anything broad finance related. And we have postings out there in Coyote Careers for hybrid internships, which would be, virtual during school and here in Omaha where our headquarters are for the summer, and also for full-time finance analyst positions as well. So a few opportunities out there right now. And obviously UP is a freight railroad. So transportation company, Western 2/3 of the US, and a lot of international presence as well. I think over almost half of our freight either starts or ends outside the US. And we got a big finance department, about 400 or 500 folks, mostly here in Omaha, with a wide variety of roles. So anything from accounts receivable to cost and profit to capital planning, budgeting, forecasting, audit, treasury. So wide variety of roles available. And like I mentioned, headquartered here in Omaha downtown. So that's UP and that's me.
Awesome. Thanks, Nate.
Sure.
We have Matthew from Warner Enterprises.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Matthew Henry. I am the Human Resources Supervisor of Talent Acquisition here at our corporate world headquarters here in Omaha, just like Nate is. So I manage our team of talent acquisition partners for multiple roles. Warner Enterprises is essentially a transportation company. So mostly known for trucking. We are the largest trucking company in the Midwest, as well as the third largest in the country. So we have a variety of locations all across the country, 1,200 just based here in our Omaha corporate office. That's anything from HR, sales, brokerage, transportation, operations, customer service. I mean, you name it, we have it. We're also on site at a lot of our customer locations on our dedicated side. So as far west as Seattle and Starbucks, as far south as Dollar General in Dallas, Coca-Cola in Atlanta, 3M in Minneapolis, Gillette in Boston. I mean, you name it, we have it. So many different roles all across the country. So whether you're going to be going into an internship, we have our summer internships as well as full-time roles. So other than that, nice to meet everybody, and let's get this thing kicked off.
Awesome. Thank you, Matthew. And thank you all of you guys for introducing yourselves. We will dive right into questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Let me pull you guys back up. So to get started, we will have Alex and Haley answer our first question. So what are key points you see on resumes that stand out to you?
Haley, you can go ahead if you want.
Sure, I'll start it off. So.
Go, Haley.
I like how he just passed that off to me. So, well, yeah, I think in very important key roles that I think we look at or stand out to me on a resume is maybe just a couple key things. Educational classes. I think that's something that we look at as what type of classes are you taking, kind of some of that you're involved in that will relate to either an internship position or a full-time opportunity. That's sometimes I take those with grains of salt as well too. Some things that we look at are involvement on campus, sports activities. We understand we're all college students, might go to classes day in, day out, and not be able to have a part-time job or have a full-time opportunity or anything like that. So we look for more of those soft skills development that you can do while you're on campus. Are you part of business club? Do you volunteer on campus in any sort of those other activities? Those are things that we kind of look at that stick out to me a little bit more. I think I talked a little bit in my introduction that we are such a community-based bank in a lot of rural communities, something that we also look at involvement as well as like volunteering and community service projects that students might have or have done in the past as well too. That is something that we value for all of our employees to have at the bank with us, is being servant leaders in our communities. And so that is something really important that we look at, is how do they volunteer and give back to their communities as well too.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of the things that Haley mentioned. Some things that we look for at First Bank and Trust, we want to see relevance based on, education and experience versus the job description. You know what I mean? Are those aligned in some kind of way? Did the candidate spend time reviewing the job description? Did they tailor their resume towards it? Did they, is it a fit? You know what I mean? So we're looking for some of those key skills, whether it be the hard or soft skills. We're looking for, chronological order, is the resume detailed out in a specific timeline, is the most relevant information visible on the resume. We're looking at, I'm kind of speaking to more of a general structure on a resume, but, is it clean? Is it chronological? Is the relevant information available for you to see easily? Is the print big enough? We had this conversation, Carly can probably remember, at DSU, I think it was last week. Is the print big enough for you to read it? Just general things like that. Haley hit on a lot of the specifics that I think most of us could agree upon. But yeah, just, make sure that it's relevant to the job, I think is most important. Some of those key words, key skills, and just making sure that it's clean and detailed and efficient resume.
Awesome. Thanks, Haley and Alex. Next question. This is for Carly and Abby. Do you have any recommendations on how students can gain experience for their resume or portfolio?
I can kickstart us off, Abby. Yeah, so I would say the best way, I know Haley touched on this a little bit, but some recommendations that I have about gaining experience is just getting involved in on campus, whether that's through volunteer activities or even, any jobs outside of school, like, being a server or any other experience like that really shows for us just like you're a hard worker and want to put in the work. So I would say just get involved and meet great people along the way. But I think some of those involvements really speak to who you are and your interests and things like that. So kind of a short little answer, but that's what I got.
I agree with what Carly mentioned, and something I just wanted to add along to that is even taking online classes and learn certifications. You don't necessarily have to pay for them. I know there's a couple of websites like LinkedIn, Coursera, Udemy. They have courses to help people gain professional skills in all types of disciplines, even some soft skills, if you will. And also tap into your school's career center. Your on-campus career center is often an untapped resource. I know I utilized it a lot when I was going to school. It not only helped me with polishing my resume, but also prepping for interviews. I know this is going to sound kind of silly, but even how to dress for an interview, because what I assume is worthy to dress up my wardrobe, if you will, for an interview might differ. So even tapping into your school's career center is also another recommendation I would add to that.
Thank you, Carly and Abby, and thanks for the shout out. So if any students are watching this, you can come meet with me. I do mock interviews, resume reviews. I can put you in touch with employers like yourselves. And then another little thing is that we're starting a career closet at USD. So you don't have any of the professional clothes that you need for an interview or a presentation. We will be starting that this spring. So if students need those types of clothes, we will serve that resource for them. So next question, this will be for Victor and Nate. How are resumes reviewed in your specific company? Are they by a computer system, an individual person? And how do you guys narrow down the pile of who decides to get an interview?
Yeah, Nate, if you don't mind, I'd like to go first.
Sure.
Awesome. Yeah, so we do use the ATS, the applicant tracking system. So the applications and resumes will come through there, and then I'll have the first initial review, and based on education, skill set, experience, and as the others kind of pointed out, how that resume is put together. If it's neat, there's no misspelled words. Sometimes you find resumes that may have, like a previous, maybe they used it for a previous application and they might have forgotten to take that off, so there's those little type of details that they should pay attention to. But after my initial review, I'll get with the hiring manager and collaborate with them and kind of say, hey, I think this one stands out. I think, based on the experience, education, skills, and those types of things, I think, this person should come in for an interview. And based on the manager's review as well, we'll kind of decide from there. Sometimes the manager feels that the experience doesn't coincide with what he or she's looking for. So then, I'll kind of say, okay, we'll put that into the maybe pile. And that's kind of how we sort through and decide who's going to be brought into the interview. So that's kind of a little bit about our process.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Victor. And ours is pretty similar too. So speaking to to UP Finance, we have kind of a handful of folks across the department that part of their role is recruiting. And so we kind of sift through resumes and really looking for folks that are, detailed, specific things to Alex and Haley's point, look efficient, look clean, it's easy to follow, easy to tie their experience to what we're looking for. And then once we kind of have that, folks that rise to the top, we probably interview a little bit more than we need to, just to make sure we get the full experience of the person and don't discount them for something they missed on their resume or something like that. But we do quite a bit of interviews, and then we kind of pick, we usually have 2 rounds. First round is that handful of folks I mentioned. Second round is, some folks a little bit higher up in the organization that can really know where they're going to be placed. Because we do a lot of our interviews just general finance, and then we use the process and the person's experience and input to kind of place them where we think makes the most sense. So that's part of the process too. But yeah, I think that's kind of ours in a nutshell.
Wonderful. Thank you, you two. Last question about resumes, and this is for Matthew and Alex. So what is the worst resume or cover letter mistake that you've seen, if you've seen one?
Yeah, I mean, being in this industry for 5 years now, you see a lot of different stuff. I'm sure Alex can attest to this, but really the biggest thing is, especially at a corporate organization, we see hundreds of resumes come across our desk every day. So really anything you can do to stand out is going to be huge. Obviously misspellings are the number one thing. I had one person that applied and they had a bachelorette of science. That person did not make it past that initial process. So just making sure that you are looking at that stuff. And again, shout out to Ashlyn in the Career Center. Make sure that you do that. You have so many resources on campus. Continue to go there. And also the biggest thing too, I think Alex hit on it previously, making sure that you have the correct order and relevancy on your resume. So if, for instance, you have a job in 7th grade where you were doing that for a month, and you have that first, and you have what you're doing currently last, the first thing that we're going to see is the 7th grade experience. So that is not something that me and my team want to see. And that's going to put your resume at the bottom of the pile. So just making sure that that's clean and concise. And then also, depending on what position you apply for, making sure that you're using the right verbiage in there. So I don't want one that's necessarily a very generic resume when it comes to the summary. I want something that's saying, hey, this is exactly, what I'm applying to. And these are some of the words that are being used. That is huge to really get the gears going and get the hiring managers excited. So as far as cover letters, I personally don't do cover letters anymore. I think they're kind of going by the wayside. In our organization, at least. I can't speak to everybody else, but that's kind of my take on that.
I kind of want to butt in real quick. One, I hope people don't have their 7th grade info on resumes. You never know.
You'd be surprised.
And 2, I guess, Alex, I might switch up the question, but do you guys see people that have high school information on resumes? I mean, when I'm meeting with freshmen, they obviously don't have any experience, so we tell them they can keep it on there, but once they're getting through college, we tell them that their high school information is irrelevant. Is that true?
Yeah, I'll answer that. I would say it is relevant until it's not, you know what I mean? And that's pretty broad. But just to say, once you have your college education, to me, that high school education is no longer relevant. So things like that, and same with jobs, maybe you're 40 years into your career and you've had, 5 or 6 different jobs. Well, that first job that you had, after your 40-year career maybe isn't relevant necessarily anymore to your current experience and what your skills and abilities have developed into. So I think, when it comes to resumes, it's relevant until it's not relevant anymore. And I don't really know how to clarify that. Hopefully you guys can understand what I'm saying. But yeah, I mean, to hit on some of those things too, I think relevancy is one of the most important. I don't necessarily have any really bad examples of what I've seen on resumes, but well, I guess I do have an example. I'll share it with you. So we had a resume come through, and it last week, and it was they had on there that they were homecoming king in 2013, and it's like, Okay, I mean, that's cool. I can understand that. That's neat. But I just don't know if it was relevant to the position that they were applying for and things like that. So it's cool to see some of those accomplishments and whatnot, but I would just make sure that it's a focus on, you know, can you tell a story around that as to why it would be, you know, relevant to the job that you're applying for and hoping to get. So that's what I would add
Okay.
there.
Nice. Okay. Maybe they were getting at that they were a well-rounded person. Let's hope. Right?
Yeah, and it could be, and that's totally fine. You know, it's just interesting, some of the things that you see. They could have had a good reason for it, and I didn't ask them a question about it. But it's you
At
know,
least you know
relevance
now.
is key.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think it's different, kind of jumping on that. I think it's different when somebody applies that's like a senior and they have all
Yes.
those campus involvements and they're applying for a job, as Haley kind of mentioned, you know, whether you're in a business fraternity or you are in like a Kiwanis club or something, that's different than somebody who's say a freshman that doesn't have a ton of experience. And yeah, they could put some of their stuff on there like, hey, yeah, I did this. That's going to be a little bit more relevant to me that, okay, that's why that's on this resume. So that is completely understandable if you're kind of an underclassman and don't have that experience.
Absolutely. Yes. Good point.
Yeah. Yeah. For newer grads or people just getting into the workforce, definitely that changes a little bit. So it's based on where you're at in your growth.
Absolutely.
Career-wise. Yep.
Thank you guys. So we're going to touch on the interview process now, and this is for Haley and Carly. Many interviews start with the question, tell me a little bit about yourself. How do you prefer the applicants to answer this question?
Carly, do you want me to take that one first? Sure. I think the sky's the limit on this question. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard just about anything on this. I really think you can tailor this question to what you feel comfortable with giving up to the person you're interviewing. Obviously, you might be a little bit more outgoing and willing to share a bunch of information with the people you're interviewing with. And maybe you're more reserved. Maybe you don't talk about your family in a tell me about yourself. Maybe you're more reserved and you just don't bring that up. I think it's relevant to talk about obviously experiences and things like that. If you are like a full-time opportunity, you might tailor that question more towards what you've done, what you currently are in your current job role and things like that. You know, obviously we interview and we look for a lot of like interns when we're talking to college students as well too. So involvement, things like that, you know, odd and end things that might be interesting to know a little bit about them. So I do think the sky's the limit on what I've heard for a response. And while just keeping everything professional as well too, when you are tailoring those responses back. So.
Yeah, I think that is great, Haley. Like you said, the sky's the limit. I think when I ask that, like, I want them to open up to me because, like I said, we're looking for somebody so specific. So I would say just be your most authentic self, honestly. Tell me a little bit about just like the things that you've done, what you're really passionate about, what drives you. What are some activities that you really love to do, hobbies, things like that. I also like to hear about, you know, I've done XYZ, and I really love this or that or whatever, but I think it's cool when candidates really just show me who they are in that question, because I always think like this is the time for you to kind of brag about yourself and really share your unique capabilities that you bring to the table. So like Haley said, the sky's the limit on this question, but I think just showing up your most authentic self and sharing how you're different really makes the conversation open up better.
This should be the longest question of your response, I think, in an interview too, as well. Because I think sometimes you could cover, I mean, I've asked this question And I think I've only asked like 3 other questions in an interview because they answered everything I would have possibly asked them the rest of the interview. Like, this is your time, like the most time for you to take talking in an interview process. And sometimes I can walk away with like, I got all of my other answers or my other questions basically answered in that one question. So I think you talk about it. I'm Ashlyn, if you do it, I worked in a career services office. It's your elevator pitch. It's your pitch as to why a company should hire you as well too. So like Carly said, really just make it all authentic to yourself as well too. So.
Yeah. And I mean, I truly do believe, like Haley said, if I only have to ask that and like 3 other questions, I'm like, you're amazing. So even talk about some of like your goals or what you've accomplished, things like that, or just your involvements too, being a college student, or just some really cool trips and experiences you've been on. Have you studied abroad or did some really cool volunteering opportunities, things like that, I think really stand out to employers because it shows just who you are. So yeah.
Perfect. Thank you guys. So Abby and Victor, how can students prepare for an interview?
Abby, you can go first if you'd like.
Thank you, Victor. So for me, it's studying your resume and know everything about it. Believe it or not, we have caught some potential candidates who have copy and pasted. So the resume is all that we have to go by in order to get to know you. So I know for us, when we're interviewing potential candidates, we kind of pick things out of the resume and ask potential candidates to elaborate a little bit on. And also, if there's any large gaps on your resume, be prepared to explain the reason behind those gaps. An abundance of short-term employment history can leave an employer with the wrong impression. So just have a response prep to explain your reasons behind each move. So that would be some of the things that I would say on that.
That was outstanding, Abby. Yeah, and just to add to your point there, yeah, I agree with just studying your resume. And then I would also add that I think studying the job description would also be a great idea, because when you study that job description and formulate your responses around that and hit some of those key words, I think it really triggers a successful interview. And then a couple other, you kind of took everything, Abby, which is great. But I think I would also add, researching the company, understanding, the type of industry you're going into. And then to add as well, I think, and this is just my 2 cents here, is if you Google or research 10 interview questions and you have those 10 questions in front of you and you recite them in front of the mirror to yourself, or maybe a buddy, if you have a child that's willing to listen, that can work as well. But by reciting those questions, like tell me a little bit about yourself, and going through those answers, I think creates a path in the brain and in your responses that is more natural. So it allows you to not have to think about what to say. It just comes out naturally. And I think that's felt in an interview. You can kind of say, wow, this person, you can tell who prepared and who didn't. Let me see here. Yeah, I think that's, if somebody were to ask me for advice, that's what I would say. Look in the mirror, recite the questions, get yourself, if it takes you 3 times to say the same question, do that, because it's all in preparation. And then I'll also add too, if you're an individual that gets nervous, I think we all get a little nervous, and that's okay, because that means we care and it's important to us. And so to help calm those nerves, when you recite it in front of the mirror a couple times and you feel confident going into that interview with your head held high, it really gives off that first impression. And it's like, okay, this is a sharp, prepared individual. And it just makes for a better interview. And then when you're done with the interview, you leave it feeling, you know, you don't doubt like, oh, did I do good or did I do bad? I wonder what they thought. It's more of like a, hey, I prepared, I did my best. You know, hopefully if you don't get the role, you get some feedback, and that feedback, you just use it for the next interview. So that's my 2 cents there, kind of informal, but I think those things will definitely set you up for success.
Great advice. Thank you, Abby and Victor. Nate and Matthew, next question is for you guys. What is the interview process like to get hired? Are there multiple interviews? Are they virtual or in person?
Yeah, I can kick it off real quick, Matt. That's all right. So I kind of alluded to this earlier, but we do a few rounds, and the first round is really just kind of more high level, kind of getting a feel for the person and, you know, their experience and how they're interested in the position and how they can be successful. And it's you usually do virtual. Today, we're trying to get more back into in person, what we used to do, but obviously things have changed a little bit, but prefer in person personally, but kind of a hybrid model right now based on the school and stuff like that. And then second round is a little bit more detail, a little bit more, you know, specifically about the role and things like that. And just a quick tack on to Abby and Victor, great advice from both of you guys. I think one thing also to think about in the interview process is be mindful of kind of your time frame. So don't take a minute per question, you know, think through, maybe take a few minutes, make sure you get the full answer out there, make sure you actually answer the question being asked. A lot of times, you know, you ask a question and they go on a tangent and they kind of miss the mark on what you're looking for. So just be mindful of your time and what's being asked of you, and, you know, take a deep breath. Like Victor said, we all get a little bit anxious and nervous. So take a breath, pause, and think about what you want to say and be confident. And like Victor said too, you're going to get feedback either way. So it's going to be a good outcome for you. If you don't get it, you'll still learn from it and grow from it too. So a couple quick 2 cents from Nate.
Awesome. Well, I'll try to give my 2 cents for Matthew over here, Nate. So thank you. And honestly, as far as the process, I think it really differs from company to company. What I always prefer is, you know, meeting with me for a phone screen or one of my talent acquisition partners, and then essentially setting up for an interview with the hiring team. And if it does have to go above that with like a VP, there's absolutely that possibility, but it's going to depend on the company. Biggest thing for me is I am such an in-person individual, whereas, hey, if you need to do virtual and say that you're 3 hours away, that's absolutely understandable. But if someone is in town, I would prefer to see them, because I can tell you about the company culture and about the job, but if I bring you on site, I can show you around the office. We can have a chat with some of the individuals, and really you can see if, hey, is this a good fit for you? Because we do have some people that apply that it's not a good fit for them. And we have some where it's like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. This is where I want to be. So it really just depends on your circumstances. I think one of the biggest things is when I was interviewing for a job, I lived in Kansas City at the time. I drove 3 hours to get to Omaha for an interview, and my AC went out. So it was 106 degrees outside. I had my windows down the whole time, but I really wanted to see what the office experience was like, get to know the company culture. I think I changed in like a gas station or something. So don't judge me, but I'm just such a big person on, hey, if you want to get to know the real me, I would rather just do it in person than over like a Zoom or something like that. But we essentially hire people, you know, for their personalities and them as individuals. We can train for skill later, but we want to get to know the real you. And I think somebody had mentioned it, your authentic self. That's exactly what we want. I think it really shines through when we do get to meet you.
Wonderful. Good effort on that too, by the way. Passionate worker. Yep. Alex and Haley, how should someone truly answer the weakness question? I feel like this is the hardest one for any type of interviewer or interviewee.
Alex, I'll let you go first.
Okay, sounds good. I was going to leave that ball in your court this time. Yeah, so this one, you know, I think there's debate out there if this is really a great question to ask anymore anyways. Let's be real, we all have weaknesses, we're all humans, we all have areas and maybe weakness isn't even the correct term, but we all have areas of improvement, right? You know, I can be better at multiple things. I'm sure we can all relate to that. But, you know, sometimes the question is brought up, maybe slightly differently. You know, what do you think your biggest challenge would be in this role potentially? I think is an interesting question that maybe gets at it a little bit differently. But, you know, I think, you know, when you're asking the question, you know, and they're willing to share about some of the weaknesses that they have, or challenges that they perceive they might have in this position, is, you know, what steps, follow it up with what steps you've taken in the past. Maybe you have a hard time. We'll just use this for an example, speaking in front of people. Maybe that's not your greatest strength, you know, and then, but what have you done to try to overcome that, you know, or have you taken opportunities that have presented themselves to go ahead and do that and try to develop that skill a little bit more? You know, it's just followed up with ways that you have taken to, or steps you've taken to try to overcome some of those challenges that you have, and just showing that you're committed to improving in all areas of your life and professional career, and how you have done that, I think is a fair way to answer that question.
Yeah, I would 100% agree with Alex. I really don't think I have much additionally to add to that. He kind of said it. I'm not really sure if weakness is really the right word to use anymore. Because we all have areas. I look at it as more of areas of improvement. You know, things that you can improve on, or things that you want to continue to improve on, maybe in this new job role, or things that you strive for in your daily life to continue to improve. I think also just owning up to some of those areas of improvement, it shows that you're vulnerable, and you recognize that you have some areas to improve on. It's not a negative question in any sorts of way. It shows that you take initiative to, you know, oh, I'm a weakness of mine, or an area of improvement is I'm a perfectionist, but here's how I try to, you know, micro or manage that in a job role, or in this new job role as well too. So I agree with Alex that maybe it's really not the right term to use anymore, and it's not a negative term in any sorts of way to think, oh, these weaknesses are stopping me from doing a job or performing a job duty. We all have areas that we can improve on, and don't look on them as a negative sort of term in any sort of way.
Absolutely. So next question is also kind of a tough subject to talk about. So Victor and Matthew, can you share your thoughts on talking about salary in an interview, and how should students navigate salary negotiations?
You can go first, Matthew, if you'd like.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, definitely a touchy subject. I think the biggest thing too is most salaries are going to be posted online, or there's going to be a range. Biggest thing for me is I don't want to waste any candidate's time, and my team as well, if it's not a good fit financially for them. So usually there's a question that you fill out. Hey, what are you comfortable with for, you know, salary expectations? We try to follow along with that. So your recruiter should go over that, I would say, within the process. I personally don't like it to be brought up in the initial interview, unless the hiring managers or supervisor brings it up to you. Say, hey, what are your salary expectations? I just think it's a big thing for them, that I would just rather have somebody else bring it up instead of the individual that's doing it. As far as if you are going to be offered the position, unless there is a set amount that, hey, like for an internship, you're getting paid this, that's kind of what it is. But if there is negotiation and we say, hey, this is your offer, I always suggest counter offering. The worst they can say is no, or hey, yeah, we can go up a little bit. I wouldn't ask an astronomical amount saying, hey, I want $10,000 more. But hey, if it's a couple thousand, maybe they're willing to work with you, or at least meet you in the middle, and you get a little bit more money out of the deal. So that's just kind of my take on a tough situation.
Yeah, great point, Matthew. I think it's okay for students to have the conversation. But I would add that it's a good idea to be prepared, right? You'd want to do your due diligence. As Matthew pointed out, some of these salaries are posted online. take a look at those salary ranges and then take a look at your experience and education and if you fall in the top tier, bottom tier, middle tier, that'll kind of help give you an indicator of where you should be, or and then consider where you would like to be. And by that I mean, like, understand your what you need to make to pay the bills, right? If you're currently working, you might need a little bit more to jump from one ship to the other. But I think it's totally fine with me when candidates ask about the ranges. I don't necessarily like disclosing the ranges, but if the situation suits it, then I'll definitely have that discussion. But as Matthew pointed out too, I don't want to waste candidates' time. If it's, if we're way below or out of the salary range that they're looking for. And then it's always, a good idea to counter as well, as Matthew said. And I think it's important how strategic you are in that counter. It's how you word it. It could be in writing, it could be over a phone call. And the worst thing, as Matthew said, they could say no. But at least you tried. And if they meet you halfway, even better, right? So I think it's totally okay. And students should definitely feel comfortable and have practice in negotiating their salaries, because it's going to be how they set their life up and how they pay their bills and that type of thing. So.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Knowing that this is getting a little longer than expected, I'm going to cut some of the questions that I had prepared and ask one final question, and any of you guys can answer this. So what is one piece of advice you could give a college student looking for a job fresh out of college? So what's your final, most best advice that you want to leave with us? So anybody can start.
I'll go ahead and answer that one. My advice would be open to other job opportunities. Maybe they won't necessarily align with your field, your career goal, but all of those opportunities are going to help you build skills. So in turn, when you do have that opportunity to apply for your dream job, if you will, all of those skills will kind of be developed and taken into consideration when applying for that. So just be open, and also don't look only at the compensation. I mean, let's be real, that does play a big deciding factor when applying for a job, but sometimes even looking at benefits, insurance, the time off, are they going to be flexible? And also, is the company a stable company? Am I going to have to worry about being laid off? So just some things to take into consideration.
Do your research too. That's a big thing for me is, is this a place where I want to be at? So as you mentioned, compensation's big, but is this really a place where I can grow at? Is the company culture fit what I'm looking for? I think that's the biggest thing. And really for me, I like when people also interview me, because that shows me that they have a true passion in what they want. And hey, maybe it's a good fit, maybe it's not, right? So continue to ask those questions, especially in the market that we're in right now. There are so many open opportunities, so you are allowed to be a little more picky. But yeah, definitely know what you want. That's the big thing for me, and look for that right company culture fit.
I would echo that too. I think culture is a big deal. Sorry, did I cut somebody off? Carly, were you going? You can go if you want.
No, you go.
Okay. All right. Yeah, no, just, understanding what you're looking for out of your employer. What needs do you have that you're looking for your employer to meet, whether that's, financial, whether that's options for growth. I would recommend finding a place where you can really build a solid skill set early on in your career. And maybe a transferable skill set at that, you know what I mean? So if you don't necessarily have to stay where you start, you know what I mean? So if I didn't start in human resources and I found my way here, but it was a journey of its own, and kind of finding out, where I wanted to be through that process, I think was super valuable, and picking up skills along the way. So it's just, and then one more piece of advice, leverage your network. I think that's a huge, huge thing, especially when you're trying to get into the workforce. Maybe you don't have a ton of experience outside of your education. I think that's where your network can really, really be beneficial. It's just one thing to consider there too. So.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Alex. And that's really what I kind of wanted to touch on is make those relationships with the people that you want to get in front of. I remember a year ago, I was just in your guys' shoes, and I remember reaching out to every single Gustavus alumni that lived in Sioux Falls and networked with them and said, hey, what do you do? Because I was in my career search of what do I want for my career and all of these things. So I would say go on your LinkedIn and creep on some people that you think are something that you are interested in, and ask them for 30 minutes of their time to really to get to know them and what they do in their company, because leveraging your network helps out so much with when you apply for jobs, referrals, etc. So I would say that's probably my biggest piece of advice. And then, like Matt said, I think culture is everything too, especially for our generation. There is a lot of things that we want in a career that might be different from like the millennials. So just being clear on some of your expectations and things like that, I think is really important too. So.
The only other thing I would add, this is all great from everybody else too. We'll go back to like Abby's first comment of being open to being able to have a start somewhere else. I also think being open to be located somewhere as well too. I hear that a lot from college students. Our internship position, we do ask that you come to Aberdeen for the summer. We're headquartered in Aberdeen. There's just a lot of opportunities to be a part of our, campus wide here in Aberdeen. And we hear a lot of times, well, I don't want to live in Aberdeen, or I don't want to be in Sioux Falls, so I'm not going to take those opportunities. You might have to start somewhere. You might just have to take that internship opportunity, 10 weeks long, be in Aberdeen. I promise it's an amazing place to be in. But knowing that that's a stepping stone for you. Start in Aberdeen. We might ask you maybe to be in Aberdeen if you're working full-time right away to be part of a department, but we're a company that if you say you want to be in Sioux Falls or you want to be in Brookings, that's not off the table, but just being open that you might have to be starting in a position somewhere right after college, but also being located somewhere as well too, with the opportunities that will move you to where you want to go as you kind of get developed in your full-time opportunity, especially in a company and at Dakota Bank as well too. So.
You can also, like, for companies, ask if they help with relocation or housing too. That's a big thing. We for our internship, we have UNO housing that we work with them. So you get paid, like there's free housing and maybe there's transportation to go to a different place. I mean, so always ask those questions for employers if that is a huge thing for you.
Yeah, no, I would just add, guys, I know I might repeat some of the amazing things you've already said, but I would add, don't get discouraged, right? If you don't get that job that you apply to that maybe, you felt was the best fit for you, do not get discouraged. Keep your head up. Try to build that tough skin. I think that's really important, handling rejection. But also apply to multiple positions. Hopefully they're entry level and they suit kind of your skill set. But the goal there is after you apply to hopefully get interviews, and in the interviews, ask the questions that you need to ask to get a sense of culture, to get a sense of the range, and then just to get a sense of how that person in that role is doing. If they're stressed, if they're happy, you can kind of pick up on those details. But the goal there is to get offers and multiple offers so that you can then compare them, and then you can compare culture, compare salary, compare benefits. I think that would be like the best scenario for any college student or anybody really that's looking for work, is to hopefully have a variety of options to choose from. Yeah, so that's my 2 cents, guys. Don't get discouraged.
I can go real quick too. A lot of great advice from all you guys. Nice job. I don't have a ton to add either, but I think we all mentioned, be open. Don't pigeonhole yourself. I want to go to a big four, think broadly, get get other options on the table, ask the questions, find the right fit for you, be enthusiastic in interviews too. You know, don't be monotone. I mean, you can be nervous, but show your emotion, you know, make sure that they get to know you and be authentic. I think those are all great piece of advice. And, you know, ask the right questions in those interviews to know what you need to know and know if it's a good fit for you and if that company makes sense. And I like Victor's advice too, of trying to get multiple options on the table too. Don't limit yourself to one. Make sure you're open. And if you get an offer and have to turn it down, that's not a bad thing. It means you went through the whole process and got a good offer and kind of had it as part of your options. So that's all I got.
Wonderful. Thank you, guys. And it looks like we didn't have any students join us live, so this is the end of our Q&A. So thank you again to the employers who joined us today and sharing your advice during our career conversations. You guys were an awesome crew, so thank you. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to spend the time with some USD folks. So you guys can watch this video on our YouTube channel later today and have a wonderful rest of your day.